SmashFactor.
Ripping driver, going for it. Oh my goodness. How about that tee shot?
That is crazy how far that is.
Wow. John Daly, take a back seat, big fella. How about that drive?
That's an aggressive line. Man, that is beyond long.
Look at this. He's just driven the green. He has just driven the green.
I guess hello world, huh?
Welcome everybody to episode 95 of the SmashFactor, the 2020 Farmers Open. Tiger is back making his debut, Rory, Rose, among others. Plenty to dive into tonight. I did take some feedback last week and I listen to the pod most weeks if I have, most time I try to, and I did notice myself that it was like 18, 19 minutes, although it was a big week of announcements and all that stuff, but getting to the new stuff a little quicker is a goal of mine. Although being solo, I kind of, it's 45 minutes total, so it's not like we're dragging this thing out. But I'd like to leave a little more time for Q&A, especially I posted that, and holy heck, I went into the Slack and Twitter, and I bet I have 30 questions asked. So I'll get to the ones I can, and then I'm also screenshotting them and putting them in a document so I have them not only for I'll answer them one-on-one, but Tambo and I's pod that we're going to do here, maybe this week, if we can make it a roundabout and kind of go through general strategy questions and stuff like that, I'll put it together and see if we have time this week or next week. But let's review last week, the American Express, which used to be the Desert Classic. Good tournament overall. For the industry, definitely, and then Gup's Corner guys did well. A lot of people on Scotty Scheffler didn't pull it out, but T3 was a solid finish for him. Answer was a big play of Kenny Kim's. I mentioned him on the E9 as well, just because of ownership. I mentioned last week that Scheffler was my fave, but it was strictly an ownership deal as well, and obviously wound up biting me, but he did come in pretty high owned. But just a scenario, the ownership isn't everything, right? Play the guys you like. I was indifferent on him and thought that would be a good leverage spot. He was projected at the highest in the 9K range by 3%. So it was just a move I made, and it didn't work out for me. And my worst bullet week of the year, I did put 2 in the 444, and I bubbled it with the Tony Finau collapse on the par 5 Sunday. If he goes double and then bogey, but I think if he pars and maybe one birdie in there and then winds up getting in that top 5 range, I would have probably cashed. I was that close. I think I was 2 or 3 points out of the money on the 444. Answer wasn't on my radar per se. He was like top 50. But I mentioned him and wrote him up in the final thoughts because of the 9.7% ownership, huge, leverage spot. And then I think that coupled with more so Kenny, he was a cash cornerstone, really put some people on him in the community so that they did well. A lot of bets are out there were on Scheffler as well. I don't think many had Landry. I do think some hopped on because he was still having good odds as he survived the first round of the stadium course, and then kind of went on about, he still had the easy courses ahead of him, still had a good number out there that people jumped on. So that was good for them. Overall solid tournament. I mean, it's not a little bit more than a hit and giggle, especially the stadium course can jump up and bite a guy. We saw several guys have great rounds going, then wind up with a double or triple. TPJ did it. Tony did it at one point. Several guys seem like they had good rounds going, and they come out of nowhere and have a couple bad holes and kind of derail them a little bit. I do think we get a much stronger field, obviously, this week, kind of gear up. Focuses on golf, PGA, no NFL, Pro Bowls there, but great slate today, NBA. I know there's been some green screens flying around there from what I saw. I did not participate, been catching up and going 90-0 all day. So good about those guys that got to have the day off. I did not. I worked. So wife and kids stayed home, hung out, had a great day. Got a little more on that on Gup's final thought, but as always, we'll hit our sponsors and affiliates and then a little review on Listener League, and then we'll get straight into the preview. 2020 site sponsor and podcast sponsor Super Draft. Starting to build some momentum, seeing a lot more screens, not only from Gups Corner, but some of the other providers and subs. So I think the momentum is getting there. Hopefully this will be a huge week. We can push them with no football. Still smaller pots, smaller contests, but we got to show them that we're gonna fill them when they put them out there. They're putting the risk out there. I think they may bump them up a little bit this week with no football being around and kind of see how it goes. I know DraftKings has put some more offers out there, and they got their qualifiers for the sports betting. I guess they're calling it the Spring Sports Betting National Championship. It looks to be pretty much basketball only. So I guess it would kind of be basketball betting sports championship, if you want to call it that. Not a lot of interest from me in that. I'll see if they do a fall one and get back, but I got other things going on that, if I happen to queue in it sometime, which I didn't think I would, I'm just going to wait to see, assuming they do a live final, I'd rather try for those. But right now on Super Draft, use the code GUP. You get $10 bonus dollars when you put $10 in play. So you take that $20, put it in play, and whatever you get, yours. So if you double up, triple up, whatever, hit a big GPP, you can pull all it out right then that night if you wanted to. I don't think you will, because I think people are enjoying it. I think, not to say we have the best content. I haven't seen anybody, or hardly, I would say we have at least at worst equal to anybody with D-Rock covering it. And a lot of the stuff we talk about kind of applies in that theory as well. And we'll keep diving and improving that. It is their scoring system and live points and all that stuff is embedded into our tools, into the PGA Research Center. So when you look at your DK and FanDuel points and all that, Super Draft is now in there as well. So that's another added bonus if you have access to the Research Center. So again, use the code GUP, get $10 off, or get $10 bonus added to your first $10 deposit, and go enjoy that. And make sure you check out D-Rock's article for some up-to-date content on golf this week. So with the PGA Research Center, we did a minor update last week, updated a few things. As I mentioned on the E9 to the community, that we have identified we had the server glitchiness kind of disconnect deal going on, mainly just because as much as we prepared and got ready, you don't really know how it all is going to react. We have an overwhelming response to the amount of people signed up for it. So we've identified all that. It's ADHD's been working hard. It's fixed. It's going through testing basically with us back and forth, and then we're enhancing it as well. The goal is to release that this weekend sometime. Probably won't be out before the start of the Farmers Open, but it will be out for the big waste management next week, Super Bowl week, all that. And in this, all those glitch it goes away completely. It's awesome. The new interface. We ain't even been going 3 weeks now. I think this will be our 4th week. The new interface that we designed around it, you guys are going to love it. No more of that. Global filters. We already had a lot of this planned. It was just we couldn't get it out in time for the first release. And then when that stuff happened, it kind of snowballed a little bit. But you guys are going to love it. The guys that have been on it. If you want to check it out, I'll embed the YouTube link in the podcast, the overview of the first one. But I will be doing a video as soon as we have this new update buttoned up. So once it's kind of out there, I'm going to do another new video, kind of a new overview. And then now that we've all been using it for a while, go through some deep dive stuff, some of the things that I'm sharing with the members at Slack that I don't think people realize is there. Just kind of give another fresh look at it, especially as we head towards, some big tournaments like the Waste Management coming up next week. So look forward to that. As always, go to gupscorner.com/store. Check out all the gear, HV3 stuff, our new GC merch combo packs. Important time. We are less than 2 weeks away. 2 weeks from yesterday, we will draw the winner for the Honda Challenge, and then it'll be announced 2 weeks from tonight. So that'll be exciting. One way to get a ticket into it is to buy a merchandise combo pack. So you can go to the store, gupscorner.com. And get that. You can also go to gupscorner.com/challenge and read the other 5 ways you can get tickets. With those 5 ways plus the merch pack, if you get all 6, then you get a 7th added bonus, lucky 7 if you want to call it that. So you can get up to 7 entries into the drawing. Less than 2 weeks away. Probably do a promo next week some way to kind of push that Super Bowl week. Got some exciting news on Tambo and I as well at the end of the pod, so stay tuned for that. So get in there, get that done so you can be on the drawing. It's an all-inclusive trip to the Honda Classic, to the DFS Open, dfsopen.com if you want to go check it out. If you haven't heard of it, I don't know how. Mayo's going to be there. Wiley's going to be there. Feinberg's going to be there. Obviously, Baroff and Joe are hosting it. I think we got 12 Gups Corner guys or affiliates in some way going to be there, including Bucks, one of the original OG guys at Gups Corner is going to be there. So going to be quite the time. You get tickets every day with us into the Honda Classic as well, plus club passes on Sunday. So make sure to get into that drawing. As always, rate and review us on iTunes, which is one way you can get into the drawing. And that always holds special weight to me. It helps us out a lot. We've had our best January start these first 3 weeks as far as downloads in the golf season. This is our third January going. So we appreciate the support and the rating reviews. It really does help a lot and help us try to get some sponsorships and stuff like that to help keep building the brand. Also, like us on Instagram, Facebook, subscribe on YouTube. Hopefully you're watching now. We're well over 1,000 now on there as far as subscribers. So spread the word there and help us out. Listener League winner last week, Dean Leaf, or Dean Leff, something like that, LEF, 630.5 points. He had M, Scheffler, Moore, Taylor, Gooch, TPJ, all guys that were mentioned some way, shape, or form. Moore was high on my rankings. Taylor was up there. Gooch was a guy I kind of mentioned Wednesday, just potential fit, nothing big. TPJ, great course fit there. M, I liked a lot. And Chef, I mentioned this on the pod last week, liked him a lot. It was just a fade for me, but I know Tambo had some of him and liked him. And so did Kenny. I think he was a cash stone corner, whatever, how Kenny calls those, as well last week. Chef and Answer were both on Kenny's list. So Kenny listed a deal that he only puts out to the premium members. So he does a course preview that he reads, obviously, but then he enhances that with some added information and then an added pool and kind of range things come Tuesday nights, Wednesday for the premium premium members that have access. And he listed 12 names and 11 of them made the cut, which is pretty awesome, especially when a lot of guys got cut. Bigger names got cut, especially like Charles Howell's a big safe guy. I think that actually was the only one that maybe Kenny mentioned out of the 12 that got cut. So solid week for him. Tambo's article was awesome as well. He's had some enhancements. We talked last week. I know he's looking to enhance that even more for the subs. So look forward to some new features on his article this week. With that, we're going to go straight into the Farmers Open. Like I said, goal is going to try to be to get to this point a little quicker so we have more time to dive on it. As always, I'll refer you to Fantasy DGM Podcast, Kenny, Kim, and Tambo. They kill it over there, doing a great job. Kenny goes in-depth on the course preview, so I kind of go that route, and I kind of just highlight it, hit some highlights here that stick out to me and direct you to them to listen to the more in-depth coverage of course breakdown or in preview from Kenny. We're in La Jolla, California. Torrey Pines course, obviously. 2-course setup. South, they play 3 days, which will also host the major next year in 2021. And then they play the North 1 day. So Thursday, Friday, they alternate. And then once they make the cut, both Saturday and Sunday are on the South course. So little like last week, but not as, crazy with 3-day rotation and all that kind of stuff. It's basically overseed rye, similar to what we saw last week, but the greens are POA. They roll pretty pure. The North greens were redone kind of 2 years ago. Last year was the first year they played them new. So they were probably a little firmer. I expect them to be a little softer this year, or kind of settled in. The South greens have smaller, they're smaller than tour average. North is about average. The course was redone in 2016, kind of a remodel, and they reduced the amount of bunkers and made the greens larger. So it's actually the point of it was try to make it play a little easier for, I think, the public. It is a public course. Last year we saw very low scores overall, and the winner was, Justin Rose minus 21. Whereas like the 4 years before it was 10, 13, 6, and 9. So very high scoring last year. The winds were down, if I remember correctly, but they're going to be down this year. And that, if the winds are down, the course is more gettable, even the south course. The winds kind of cause havoc there on the south course, especially in the afternoons. So it's something to keep an eye on. But right now, it really looks gorgeous. I mean, perfect weather. We'll get to that in just 1 second. But the north course is a 7,200 par 72, wider fairways in the south. As I mentioned, the remodel happened in 2016. The south is also a par 72, but it's 7,700. Long, very tough course. Obviously, hosting the U.S. Open next year. A lot of tight landing zones off the tee. Getting the ball in play and staying out of that rough, which is just nasty. You're gonna pray to make a par if you get into the rough this week on the south. So hitting fairways are going to be a premium, and lengths matter. So that kind of, you go back to Rory, and the guy that's had some of the best history here in the last 5 years consistently is Finau, but long and straight in the fairways, goes a long way this week. Obviously, if Rory's A game is on, he's as good as it gets. And then with Tiger's dominated this place for almost 2 decades now. So a lot of options up there. I'm interested to get into the field this week, and then obviously as we get to Wednesday and get the live questions going, I think it'll be a good week for that, because we have a pretty deep field in general. You got guys that have been 8-9K that are now 6,900, 7,400, 7,700. So that sticker effect comes in and people think they're getting a huge deal. We kind of got to pause to that and go, it's all relative to the field. So let's not get, oh my God, so-and-so 7,700, he's been 9,800, and we get all excited about it. So we gotta digest that and make sure we're not, instinctively going the wrong route. As I mentioned, the weather looks great, mid 60s. North winds on Thursday, Friday, turning out of the south on the weekend, but really nothing over 10, 12 mile an hour right now. It's early, so more important as we get to Wednesday. If we do see a huge wind advantage, we'll obviously address it. But right now, I kind of consider it a lot more like last year's setup. Maybe not as soft. I think there was quite a bit of rain in the area leading up to this, if I remember right. Last year, this year, I don't see as much or read as much, but I don't think it's going to play as super tough if that wind doesn't come up. Cut's been around even. I'm going to go with the -2 cut. I do think scoring will be up, and obviously the T65 rule in effect will play havoc into that cut line. It could even be -3. I'll kind of readjust that by the time we get to the final thoughts on Wednesday. Last year's winning score, like I said, -21 Rose. Before that, day one in a playoff, -10. I was there that year. It was a Monday playoff, actually. Rahm won -13, Snedeker -6, and then Day again -9, which was a 4-way playoff. So Day's won 2 out of the last 5 years. If you kind of want to, course fit profile a player, great with irons is obviously one of those. I'm going to predict kind of like the Rahm, in between Rahm and Rose. So maybe like -14, 15 type. Could see as much as 16 if the North course even plays a little easier with the greens being not as hard like they were last year. But even with that, Rose tore apart the North course last year with them being, fresh like they were. So I think scores can be had if we don't get the wins. Key stats for the week for me, kind of a blend of an all-around player. There aren't a lot of tournaments that I just go to tee to green, but this is one of them that I do, because I do think the putting gets neutralized. They're pure greens for the most part. I think, good putting matters, obviously, but when I look at tee to green rankings here compared to the average, your solid all the way around players tend to stick out. Great players, elite players, and that's kind of where I'm going to focus this week. Definitely looking at fairways in regulation, accurate drives, a stat that we have on our site on the PGA Research Center. Stroke scan approach, good and great approach blends, bogey avoidance, not as heavy as I normally would have it here, but I do pull that in just a little bit. And then, a typical all around ball striking is something I'm looking at as well. 47 guys haven't played this since 2015. So I'm kind of throwing that in the stats every week to kind of see how many guys pay attention to that. They may have played it in like 13. So I've had some guys DM me last week and said, hey, so-and-so played in 13. You have them with no course history. I was like, well, I only go back so many years. Not that it doesn't matter, like Tiger, right? If we went back 10 years, he's going to be number one. and I don't think he's terrible in mine. I mean, he's up there high. So he's 36, but you got to remember that during 15, 16, 17, he had a withdrawal, a cut. He didn't play, but then the last 2 years, he's finished top 22, top 23. So, but obviously, when I do my final thoughts and rankings and adjustments, those are some of the things that I tweak. Like, I'm going to give him a bump because he obviously knows this course well historically. But as far as this goes, I kind of look at who's played it since, last 5-6 years. And 47 guys have either never played it or haven't played it since then. 152 guys in the field. I posted on his Twitter last week, but I'll say it here on the pod. In the 10K range, there's 5 guys. That's 3% of the field, 3.3%. 9K range, 7 guys, 4.6% of the field. 8K range, 10 guys, 6.6% of the field. 7K range, 29 guys, 19.1% of the field. 6K range, 101 guys, 66.4%. I started doing this a few weeks ago in-house behind the curtains, if you will, and then posted it last week. And I think it's just an eye-opener to people that don't realize, because you focus so much on those top guys that you realize you're only focusing on about, 15 to, if you get to the 7K, 30% of the field is made up there, and you got 66% of the field is in the 6K. Not that it matters. It's just, trying to chop up how to eat an elephant one bite at a time type of deal, and dissecting it like that. And then figuring out, to pick the exact right low guy is harder than you think. And just mathematically, you may pick 3 or 4 in a week. If you're doing an MME, if you're doing 100 lineups, maybe you have 10 in that range, and you're still going to have to pick 10 out of 100 that are going to do well. Now, of course, there's 30 or 40 you probably can chop off real quick, but getting the right guys low down there is more difficult than what some, vision, when you start thinking about it mathematically wise, as those numbers state. If you're new to the pod, welcome. I kind of have a 4-tier approach called the Dirty Dozen. We do salary ranges. So the first tier is 9K or above. The middle one is 7,600 to 8,900. The third tier is 7,500 or less. The fourth tier is a flop, a fade, and a sleeper. 3 picks each. And then I kind of do a round table to hit up some of the guys that I have marked that, just on the border of this, or guys that stick out, first glance. Since I'm solo right now, I just kind of wanted to get a few more names tossed out there for your player pools, or to research a little more on. So I get started in the 9K range. I'm going to go back to Finau. I was on him last week. He was, like I mentioned, he was in one of my 444 lineups. I presume him to be chalky this week. I don't know, maybe with kind of the meh finish last week, maybe not, but 9,300 seems like a great value for him. His last 5 years here, his worst is a top 24. So he absolutely loves playing this course. T10 at the Hero, T14 last week. So, T14 last week and had several holes that were just terrible. So, I mean, ball striking, he's doing well. Just a couple of slip-ups last week, and then a couple of days he didn't putt too great. But, just with the course history altogether, he's number 2 overall in my rankings. Not much negative there. I'd be interested to see if he gets chalky. My perception out the gate is just with the tightness of the pricing and so many great options and key ranges, especially the high 8s, low 9, the ownership should be spread out a lot. And he's right there in that range that you should be able to kind of build your teams the way you want. I don't imagine too many guys even being over 20%, let alone like 25%. So, I mean, worst case, you're getting 75% leverage on anybody. So I really think focusing more on playing the guys when you get done with your process that you like is optimal than trying to get too cute. And some of the back testing I've been doing the last several weeks is proving that theory out some. I think even myself sometimes try to get too tricked up and too cute, when at the end of the day, just getting 6 guys through the cut and in scoring position on Sunday is hard enough. There's no reason to try to be like the one guy that picked, some random dude. I mean, it's advantageous, especially in a GPP type build. But I think we try to get away from the guys that are, I can't remember who I heard say this, but it's dead right. It's like, this is the only sport where we try to avoid the good guys or the guys coming on. I mean, like the guys that just did well, we go the opposite. Whereas football, you're like ride the heater or do whatever. Now there's always gamesmanship in there for sure, especially in, single entry builds and all that. And so hopefully some of these questions we got coming in, I'll get to answer a little bit of that. But, unless something stupid comes around, I'm not going to get moved off of Finau too much. Next up for me is Rahm. I think I don't know. He's so liked in the industry and somewhat hated. I mean, it's kind of a love-hate deal for him, but where he's priced, I don't know how much he's going to get. I'm interested to kind of see the flow because my instinct is Rory's going to be highly talked up and highly owned. If he's not, I will be on Rory for sure. I mean, I think he's the best player in the field, at the end of the day, but I think being trapped between Tiger, who's a fan favorite, and Rory, who's, I think pound for pound, everybody thinks probably the best golfer in the world at his peak for sure. I think Rahm may get squished in there because I think guys will either drop down to Tiger or pay up for Rory. Sorry about that. But I don't know. Maybe I'm reading that right. It's very tough right there. And so ownership, this is a spot where it could matter because you want to get X amount over the field. And when you're at these higher prices, to get that leverage, it kind of locks you into a certain build strategy. And I mentioned this last week or maybe on the E9 that, to be overweight on a $7,400 Damon, that's, let's say he's 16% and you want to be 30%. Okay. You can still build many ways around him. If Rory's 22% and you want to be 40%, well, 40% of your lineups are going to be kind of, not locked in the same build, but similar, right? Because he's just eating up so much of the salary cap that it does make a difference when you make your decision up here. And that's where that leverage, and what I mean by that is, like Answer last week, right? He was half the ownership of like a Scheffler or something like that. I mean, that's huge when you're only talking $400 or $500 difference in those two, that you can get double the leverage on a guy at the end of the day that has just as much win equity as Scheffler. And although they both wind up there great, I'm just using that as an example that, 8,900 to 9,500, I think is what Scheffler was. But, to get double the field of Scheffler, you needed to be 50% or so, maybe 40, 45%, or double the field of Answer, who I think has maybe not as good, but maybe after last week, we'd say as good chance to win or top five. And he was showing 9% projected. And so I can go get 20% of him. And I still have much more building options there. And that's some of the key strategic parts that Tambo and I are going to get into in the premium member only pods coming out soon. So Rahm may be that guy this week for me. And the next guy, I don't know. I can't wait to listen to Tambo and Kenny in the morning. They're my first pod up when I head to the gym, but he is literally 9,900. So that by the rule of Tambo, he's in play this week, but I don't know if he's going to go back there. At the Sony, he finished T12 and he putted like dog shit. Like he was, I think he led him and maybe Neiman were up there in tee to green. They were just striping the ball and couldn't putt for crap. He seemed to struggle at this place early on in his career, but the last 3 years has gotten better each year. T33, T12, T3. So flirting at 18 to 20 to 1, I think that's definitely an option. I think he'll probably be in the one and done discussion as well. I'm a Matsu guy at Nature. I certainly don't mind going Matsu, and dropping out of the 10K all the way together. I'll get to Tiger in a minute, but I would drop from Rose to Matsu. I know Rose won it last year and he's coming in great. He's got a 4th, 8th, and 1st, but I lean Matsu there as my last play in this range. Next up, I'm a little afraid of because I've already seen just what little bit I got to catch up on tonight when I was eating a little dinner with the family, that my boy and my first bookmark of the year when I started that segment was Ryan Palmer, West Texas boy. I've liked him for a while. Followed him the whole Honda last year. I do got the Honda rep going. Getting excited for that tournament here in about 40 days or so. $8,000 coming in some of the best form of his career. I mentioned that when I talked about him, that I thought whether the win with Rahm mattered or not, I think it did in the sense that it kind of relaxed him and allowed him to just focus on playing great golf, which he can do. To get on top of that, he's got a T2 and 18 and a T13 last year. So the 2 times he's played it in the last 5 years, he's played great. I assume he's going to be super, super chalky. So I probably will just lay the 66-1 bet. And then maybe I don't play him in DK, or if I'm doing a single build, I don't know how much I care about the ownership. I'm just going to play the 6 best guys I think will do well this week. And he's certainly in that realm of possibilities right now. So Ryan Palmer kicks off this range. I don't mind going back to Morikawa, 8,900. I'm hoping the price tag keeps people off him a little bit. But as far as all the things we mentioned, approach, ball striking, being in the fairway, tee to green, form coming in is great. I don't know what else to say for him, especially getting a little bit of a discount to me, 8,900. Not sticker shock discount, but I mean, I could put him there in the Finau range or something like that. $200 cheaper than Sung Jae. Sung Jae is a DFS darling in general, so Morikawa could be a little less owned and not get the spotlight, especially if people seem to continue to group him and Wolf and Hovland, rightfully so. But if they do that, there's a tendency to go, oh, Wolf's $700 cheaper. My caution with Wolf this week is if you go back and look and some of the stuff watching him, like he tends to spray just a little bit more than the others because he's more aggressive, and he doesn't want that out here. He's not played here yet, so that's a little worrisome for Wolf. But $700 cheaper, I think he may get some more ownership than what Morikawa does. So I like Morikawa 8,900. My last one was like a 3A, 3B. I really, really like both these guys, and it's Neiman and Snedeker. Sned's 8,400. I think it's a great price for him. His last 5, kind of similar to Finau, 19th, 1st, 9th. Last 2 years, a little not as great, but he made the cut both times. He also had a 12th at the Sony, played well. I don't know how much talked up he'll get, but as long as he's staying on the radar, I like Snedeker. And then, we all know I like Neiman, 2-time junior AM winner here. I think back-to-back years. Last year did okay. He made the cut, but didn't do much on the weekend. Obviously, his form coming in is pretty good. Sony, he struggled, but I'm not going to count. Again, I think if I went back, I'd have to double check myself, but he was one of the top 10 in tee to green that week. He didn't putt for shit. And I don't know if the wind messed with him or what, but he was horrible. And the tournament champions, he finished 5th. So definitely coming in decent form. 8,600s right there in that money zone that all these guys are going to be in, where the tough decisions are going to have to be made this year. Neiman, Reed, the guys I mentioned earlier, Finau, Cameron Smith, Morikawa. Of course, I doubt anybody's going to go to Cameron Smith coming out the win. Sung Jae's right there, just loaded up there in the high 8s, low 9s to make some decisions on. So the third tier, 7,500 or less. First one, the guy, I really like this guy this week, Harris English. Great history here. He did miss the cut last year, but leading into last year, he had a 2nd, a 31st, a 14th, and an 8th. So, he's one of the better course fits out here. He's coming off a 5th at Mayakoba. He did miss the cut at RSM, and then the 48th last week, but really just struggled on Sunday. He was hitting it great going into Sunday, kind of just an average round. I think he actually shot over par, if I remember right. He was in my team with Finau, so I was well aware that he didn't play well. None of my guys showed up on Sunday in typical fashion. Top 10 in my stat model this week overall. I just kind of like where his game is, and to get a guy that's traditionally played this course really well, coming in pretty good form. Could have easily had a top 15 last week if he played Sunday well. $7,400 seems like a steal for him. My next guy is Damon. Had the week off last week, but he did play at Sony with the T12. Last year got a 9th here. He missed the cut in 18. But I like that, his second year playing here, he made a lot of, improvements, jumped up, had a great year, or great last year. He's 7th in my stat model, again at $7,400. 100 to 1. He definitely piques my interest on the betting side as well. So I like Damon as a potential play down here. And then last is Cauley, but I just lost where he is on my sheet. Mentioned him last week a lot. I loved him last week. And at the last minute, I pivoted from Cauley to Nate Lashley. So you guys can easily tell. I didn't really talk about my wrap up. I was trying to get through that part fast, but DraftKings sucked. Didn't do well at all. But I did do good in Showdown. Did okay. I made a little bit of money over the 3 days. Not much, not enough to offset the main slate. Main slate got slaughtered. Betting was up on the week. Matchups did really, really well. Finished up. So, and I'll get that recap out either tonight or tomorrow. But decent week altogether. I'm kicking myself because last night I was going through my tickets and everything, and I bet Collie top 5, and I thought I had it on the card, and I did not, and so it sucks. One of the good followers, he had the same bet as well, because I don't know if he bet it off of me or not, but we were excited because he got the top 4 this whole time. Like, I'm going through thinking, all right, that helped save the day. It paid 20-1 as a top 5. And I get to review the card, and I'm like, why is he not on here? So that was a kick in the nuts for me to not get that to the community. I don't really know how I got him, because I had him as the outright. That's what makes me even more mad, is we had the outright at 100-1. I just left him off the top 5, but kind of wraps up my week with the whole Collie mess, and then Lashley withdrawing after the first round. So kind of a nightmare in that whole situation. I should have just stayed on him. I liked him a lot. Tinkering will kill you. I made that. I told the community, and I said this early, even before Lashley blew up, that was my final tinker that morning. Was I moved like 3 minutes before lock. I flipped to Lashley last second. Was just worried about Collie, kind of rust and all that, but thought he fit the course great. Had prior course history, and total blow up on my part. The $7,600, I'll go right back to him. I don't know if how many people he played with Justin Thomas at Bama. His pedigree was big time. Obviously, he's had a rougher road and then had the accident and all that kind of stuff, but starting to show that form of what his pedigree can be. And he's also done well here. Top 25, a top 58, and a top 13 here last year. And that was coming right off of his bounce back, or coming back off the injury, if I remember correctly. So I missed cutting 17, but I really like him. I don't mind firing right back up on him, and 80-1 as well. I like the number there. I mean, he has the skill set when firing to win a tournament on the PGA Tour, and I think he will at some point. So $7,600, I like Collie. Last tier, a flop, if you're new, is anybody I think that won't return value. Fade can be ownership, course history. I don't like the colors they wear, and just whatever. It's just fading a guy to fade him. Obviously give the reason, but it's nothing related to price necessarily. It's just my fade of the week. Last week it was because of ownership, so it can be that as well, or at least projected ownership. And then sleepers, my favorite kind of lesser known name under $6,900. Like everybody knows, I'm a Redmond guy, so I'm gonna play Redmond this week. I may be off the Zane train. He's missed 3 straight cuts now, and although he hits the ball well at times and can score, his game's a little off, and this is not a course you want to show up with your game off on. So I don't think I'm going to go back there. But Redmond, talking about pedigree, he can grind out, and I like him even more here than I would last week. I didn't go to him last week. I played him some in Showdown, and he did well for me the day I played him. But not having to like just birdie, and then a big hole, or he's known for going bogey or a double. It doesn't like kill you here in traditional years. We'll see if we get back to the minus 21 stuff this year, but I think the mindset of this course fits Redmond a little bit more. But the sleeper pick, I'm trying to angle a guy that may not be on as many radars, not just necessarily $6,900 or less. My flop is going to be Jason Day. I'm hoping the course history will pick up some steam for him. The only thing I hate about him necessarily this week is just coming off the rest. I just don't like him. I think he's a guy that's got to be in rhythm, playing well, groove, and I don't like the long break for him. Obviously, he's got a great history here, but he missed 2 cuts back-to-back in 16 and 17. In between his 2 wins. Last year, he had a 5th. So he can show up and play this course for sure, and I just think he's in that money range, that same 9,000 we're talking about, high or low 9s, high 8s, and you're gonna have to pick someone in there to get off of. And for me, he's kind of my fade. Does it mean like if I was going to build 100 lineups, which I don't think I'm going to do this week? I think I'm going to go more to my bread and butter. Would I have 0 of them? No, not necessarily. But I think he's going to be, if he's going to be low owned, you could gain some leverage there. But it'd be interesting to see where he comes in, because he's got no form. He hadn't played since my Kobe. He missed a cut there. Stat wise, he's not going to show up great, probably hardly anywhere, just because of how he finished the year last year. But history is all there, so interesting to see where he comes in. My fade's going to be Fowler. Did this last year. I'm just not going to get off this train until he proves otherwise. His last 5 here. Of course, he's the tournament sponsor, so he's the Phil, the lefty of this week. His last 5 is T61, cut, T66. Well documented history. He's like the opposite of Day, though. No course history at all that's good, but his form has been great. His last 3 is a 9th, a 5th, and a 10th. Last week he got a 10th, and he couldn't make anything Sunday. Tee to green was great. he had plenty of birdie opportunities. He just couldn't drain a putt. So game's coming in on fire. I mean, I'm interested to hear Tambo's take on that. I'm assuming he's going to be off of him because he goes, no, can't win Ricky, and just save him for next week at the Waste, I guess. Defending the title, I believe last year is when he won, but he's just kind of my fave because I'm not going to get off that train until he proves that there's something about this course that he doesn't. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just a pressure of the week. I have no idea. But the history just doesn't prove it there, and so maybe there's something he just doesn't like about it. So I'm gonna fade the $9,700 there, and I'll go elsewhere. Sleeper is going to be Matthew Naismith. Played great. He's been we played him some in the fall. T48 at the Mayakoba, T14 at the RSM, T32 at the Sony, and then T17 last week. So really good form for a $6,600 guy. Hasn't played here. Stat wise, he's top 27 in the field. So just kind of one of those cheaper guys that looks to have a good chance to make the cut. And so $6,600, that's all we need out of a guy like that. And so he is my sleeper. My favorite in this area, obviously, is Redmond. He's going to always be a stat monster. He's fourth this week, 16th overall in my model, 6,500, but I never seem to get him right. He kind of yo-yos a lot. So he's got a miscut at 23rd, a miscut at 29th. So he can win a tournament or he can, be 6 over, through 4. He's a roller coaster. If you want like that high DFS, just anxiety type stuff, just have some of him and follow his round on a Thursday because his round is a roller coaster ride for sure. But I like him. He's just one of my guys. He's in my brand. So I'm always going to have at least a FOMO bet on him, if nothing else. But I think he may make the player pool this week. Roundtable wrap up for me. Started out with the obvious Tiger, Rory. Certainly don't mind playing either one of these. That's probably an understatement. I'm really going to dictate, like I mentioned, I pegged Rahm as a guy that I think is trapped in the middle of the zone. That, man, maybe that's what everybody thinks. So they go Rahm. I'm not sure, but I see more people paying down for Woods and up for Rory that lets Rahm be in there. But I certainly, if something's getting so spread out up here and you can get some Rory or some Tiger, I would do that. If I'm going to play 3 out of the 5K, in a GPP, it would be Rory, Rahm, and Tiger, which is probably going to be pretty common, but I definitely don't mind X. And he's from the San Diego area. Similar to Ricky, though, until last year, he missed his first 3 cuts here. So that still is back of my mind. And then Rose, 10-3, probably be a little popular, being a cheaper option for people that want to go that route. But I like Tiger and Rory. I mean, you can play them any week, right? So nothing negative to say there. I just talked about X. Griot, he's kind of like Redmond, just a little more long-term. Always going to pop in stat model. He's actually number 1 in my model this week as far as stats go. He's 5th overall. Missed the cut in 16 out here, then 3 straight made cuts, 33rd, 12th, 52nd, 21st at the Sony, 41st at the Mayakoba. Coming in pretty good form overall. $7,800 seems cheap for that guy. I don't think he's going to go out and win. We know he struggles putting, but at 7,800, a top 40 kind of gets you in the ballpark, top 30-ish type number, makes the cut or something like that. Which he's made 3 out of the last 4 years. So I like Griot. Pat Perez, will be interesting to see if the industry talks about him a lot. $7,000. Up and down here, he's had a 4th, and he's had 2 missed cuts. Coming in okay form. He made the cut at the Sony. He's just decent stat model. He's just a guy that kind of stood out to me as a name that maybe not many would be on, so I wanted to mention him. I already talked about Redmond. Russell Knox, all was on him last week. Couldn't putt, but form is well, right? He's 4 straight top 37 or better finishes. Last 2 years here, he's got a 43rd and a 29th, 13th in my stat model overall. So Russell Knox is in the on my site. A cheapie, but potentially high upside, kind of high risk, high upside, worth a GPP flyer. Brandon Wu, $6,300, 300 to 1 if you want to throw a each way on that, or maybe a top 5, top 10 bet. You can probably get good numbers there. Great kid in high school, college, played great. Definitely has a potential, limited sample size, but some of the rounds that I was analyzing earlier, he's got upside to do it. Am I going to go all in on someone like that this week? No, but he's a good cheap option, especially if you're looking for some flyers. Lanto, I assume, will be right back up in high ownership, especially getting the $7,900 nod. I think that's a little cheap for him in this field. Played it once in 2018, a T12, so I like that. He's coming off a 13th and the 7th place in the last 2 tournaments he played, top 25 in my stat model. Patrick Reed, I think he'd probably be in no man's land this week. I don't kind of like Rom, but he's kind of the Rom of the low 9K range. I don't see a lot of people jumping on him, so he's definitely on my radar. Obviously, elite talent in my eyes. Top 25 in my overall model. Withdrew here in 16, but 2 top 23 or better the last 2 years, including a 13th last year. He had a 3rd at the Hero and a 2nd at TOC before burning a lot of people, including myself, with a cut at the Sony. I don't mind going back to Patrick Reed here. Wolf, like I mentioned, I like him. He's aggressive. If he's hitting it well off the tee, he certainly can be in play here because he's going to be long, as well as Cameron Champ. Both those guys, I think, will be in the GPP player pools for sure. They're fringe players for me in a lower build type lineup. Champ's only played here once with a missed cut, but we know he's long if he can put it in play. Sometimes he gets in that rough, and that's not going to be ideal this week. So both those guys are fringe for me right now. I mentioned Snedeker earlier. Won't go there. Brendan Still, I think you could go back to. Obviously, lost in the playoff 2 weeks ago. Has a good history here. Missed a cut last year, but before that, a 29th, a 20th, a 49th, and a 45th. A 2nd at Sony. Then last week he comes back, makes the cut, T43. He certainly has a game that could fit here. 7,100 seems cheap, so he's just someone to keep an eye on. Horschel, I think, is a good option this week. Great course history here. Keep an eye on him. I don't know how much he'll get talked up in general, but overall his game's just continually trending upward if you look at a long-term view. And so I like Horschel. Leishman is another guy keep on your radar. I mentioned Champ. Gooch, mentioned him on the E9 last week. I like his game overall. He can put it in play. He does have that roller coaster in him, but last 2 years here, he's at a 51st, and last year he got 3rd. 4 straight made cuts for him, so I think the form is coming in. He's got a 55th, a 23rd, a 63rd, and a 17th. At 7,200, I mean, he's right there on the bubble for me, but he's definitely someone to keep in mind. Sabatini is another guy I like right there around the Gooch range, and he's the same area in my model overall. 3 made cuts here, a 14th and a 20th in the last 3 years, so knows how to get around this course. And then last but not least for the round table for me is Maverick McNeely, kind of a DFS darling that makes everything on the putting surface, but his tee to green is normally not very great. Played here once for the 29th. He's a cheap option at 6,600. I don't know, just because he struggles so much tee to green at times, that I don't know if I want him out here because you get too far off here and you can get in trouble. But he has played here, got around here once. 3 straight made cuts for him as well. So he kind of rounds out that overall overall round table for me. Bookmarks of the week for me. Answer is one. That's probably pretty easy, kind of a cop-out chalk, I guess, if you will. But obviously his game is coming around. He's riding the President Cup heater, continues to improve. Shot a course record, I believe, 9 under yesterday to get at one point tied or maybe even leading. I know he was tied for sure there at the end. But just playing great golf all the way around. Obviously, he's a Boomer Sooner, went to OU, so definitely like him. Enjoyed watching him last year at the Valero. Lives here in San Antonio, actually, so maybe one day get to meet him. But I like Answer. I'd keep an eye on him. I mentioned this earlier, but Collie, he's my 2nd bookmark of the week. So if you're new to the pod, I just list 2 or 3 guys each week that impressed me, caught my eye, someone to keep an eye on as we go through the DFS and PGA season. I talked about Collie already. Pedigree, I think he's starting to show that and could be on a ride. So I would keep an eye on him. And then Straka, DFS darling in general, but he always just he struggled to make putts at times. He struggled to make cuts. He would be up and down in rounds and really putting together a pretty good run all the way together, including a 4th last week. Great Sunday, a 53rd the week before that, and then he missed 2 cuts before that. So he still has that in him, but he T13 here last year. And just in general, I like to see where his game's going. He's still going to be flirting in that 6K range, sometimes 7K, depending on the field. But Struck is a guy I would like to keep an eye on as we go through the season. Next segment is the betting strategy. Kind kind of go through odds range. I picked two guys out of each, that I like right now. 50 to 1 or less. The two that I would take a hard look at is Finau and Morikawa. I think they both can win. And, if you're in this range, obviously, you can go down there and bet Tiger, Rory, all those kind of guys. But if you're in this range, I got to think you can literally win it. I got to visualize you can win it. And I think both those guys can. I know Finau is kind of the laugh, Ricky, Big Ricky or Little Ricky, or I don't know which one he is. I have to ask Feinberg, but he's talented enough. He's going to break through at some point and win. Ironically, I think he may win a major before he wins a regular. He's always there in the top 10 in majors as well. But those are the two I have in that range. The next range up to 80 to 1. I already mentioned Palmer. He's kind of the free play of the night, 66 to 1 on Bovada. So Ryan Palmer's the bet there because I don't know if I'm going to go to him in DK or not. And then English at 80 to 1. I like him a lot. I mentioned him a lot earlier. 80 to 1 to 120 to 1. I like Damon and Collie. They're both right there in that range, flirting with 80, some a little higher depending on which book you're looking at. I like both those guys this week. Collie for sure. Has my eye, and the Damon, he's kind of a team gup, one of the guys I typically follow and like. So he'll be probably a FOMO no matter what. Dark horse, FOMO no matter what. Mention him a lot. Redmond, and then Straka. I just mentioned him. I think you can get him as high as 150, 170. So I like Straka as that dark horse range over 120. The one and done strategy segment. I ended up going Finau last week for my official Gups Corner pick. Not bad. I think he finished 14th. I didn't see the money list yet. I didn't go in there, but I know the Scheffler chalk hit, and so that was what, and then I think M was right there too, T10. And so I, didn't gain nowhere. Not the worst place to blow a Tony type play. I was going back and forth between Sung Jae and Tony, and landed on Tony Wednesday night. So, that kind of right there. I mean, shit, I think he was up to second or third, because he started 3 under through 4 on Sunday and then went double and a bogey, and he was done after that. Fought his way back. So, he dropped his, like T30. So getting up to T14, I'll take it. My best guy, quote unquote. So I kind of have a strong play, a floor play, and a skins play. My strong play is going to be Rahm. I think it is a pretty solid field. I do think he's going to contend at majors that are probably worth a little bit more, but I bet this pot's pretty attractive as well. The purse, let me see, I don't know if I can find last year's. That's something I'll add to the pod. So we have that. But so 1.3 million or so last year to the winner, 7.1 million pot. So not terrible at all, but I like Rahm if you're going to go strong play up top this week. I don't know how popular he'll be. I guess I would, caution that with, let's see how the ownership not that DFS ownership is going to correlate, but maybe you go Rory because no one's going to be on him. And you go, hey, if he wins this week, I get a win with Rory, and I'll call that good. But I like Rahm if you're going to go strong play. My floor play, which is a guy is kind of like Finau last week. Top 10 potential, maybe could win, maybe not be as popular, would be Matsu for me, $9,900. So I'm kind of gauging that as my range. I obviously like him. I think he can win here, obviously. And I think he's got great potential to top 10 it. So Matsu would kind of be my safe floor play for this week. And then skins play, I'll list 3 or 4 guys that, potentially could be, Landry was, I believe, 1 owned last week. So he actually got our first skin winner of the year. Right now it's worth whatever. I think it's 4K. So if no one else gets that all year, he'll win the whole skin. So that'd be great. But, like a Palmer, but he's really popular. I wrote this down before I realized how popular he was. I just scrolled Twitter, during dinner, and I must have saw 6 people already talk about Palmer. So I was like, well, I guess he's not going to be under the radar. Damon, potentially. Redmond, I don't think many are going to go like Redmond for 1 and done. I may play Redmond. Maybe I'll win a skin. Probably not now. But Snedeker, a guy like that. Maybe a Russell Knox. Just these guys, Pat Perez, he got a 4th year. It takes a guy like that you think many are even looking at. But that win, wins upside is definitely there. if all things come together, but you don't want to just boot the week in doing it. It's a real risk reward type deal. It's a cool feature that was added on for sure. Leishman, he's got an 8th, a 20th, and a 27th here. So guys like that, even Keegan, which God knows I can't see Keegan winning. Keegan's always going to Keegan, but he's got a 5th and a 4th here. He's 39th on my model. Guys like that is who I'd be eyeing this week if you want to go skins play for sure. I mentioned this last week. Listener Q&A. My DMs are open. If you're a member, you can get into Slack and do it there. You can do it on Twitter, however way you want. I'm going to pick. Y'all blew it up tonight, so I appreciate it. I'm not going to delete those or anything. I'm going to everyone that get one, I'll either answer you personally or I'm going to add it to the pod for me and Tambo to get into. But I'm going to pick 2 or 3 a week to kind of just dive into and discuss, see what's on your guys' mind. I mean, the pod's for you, so I might as well focus, especially being solo, on a little bit different than what I think someone in the industry may be doing, and not to be different than the industry. That's not really my motive, but being solo, I thought maybe this would be a cool idea that I kind of came up with and see how it works. First question was, my question would be regarding contest selection. Should we be altering our strategies for a 100-player single entry compared to a 1,000-player single entry compared to a 10,000-player single entry? If we built 3 lineups, would you have 33% each lineup in single entries you decide to enter? Are playing 3 entries only in a massive $5 waste of resources that could have been used for other contests? Should ownership matter in single entry? How would you construct 3 max GPPs? That's kind of, and then he kind of goes on a little bit after that. But it's kind of the core of it. Good question. It's one of the reasons why I selected. Lou is your Slack name, so you get to pick a hat or a shirt. You can reach out to us. We'll tell you how to do that. So I live bullet life to the core. So the first lineup I build goes into every contest I'm going to be in that week, whether it's 1 or 10 or whatever. Like JB knows this. I put the same lineup in all my GC Cup that's in my 444, if I do the 44, I mean, whatever it is. So if I was going to enter 10 single entry max contests, I would build 1 lineup for the week. That's just how I build and think. I wouldn't build 10. I wouldn't build 5. I wouldn't build, and there's some out there that I think that would do it differently. I think Tambo probably does a little differently. It also depends on what you're going after. If you're trying to get a qualifier and you want to be a little different, I could see that, but I definitely, personally, I try to focus on that. But to your point, let's just say you're trying to choose between a 100-player pool, a 1,000-player pool, or 10,000-player pool. Yeah, I think the thought process behind those individual contests would be different. But if I was entering in all 3, it would be the same lineup for me. But I could see where someone would want to build 3 different lineups, and that's fine. In golf, especially with all the craziness that we already deal with in the 6 of 6, especially if it's a cut week. In a big field like this week, 152 guys, I don't think I would worry too much about how I would differentiate in those 3 different types. Obviously, you would think if there's 10,000 lineups versus 100, the cash line or to win it is going to be lower in the 100. That's just common. That's just math. If you look at the 444, what won it versus what won the $5, I think there was, 700 lineups or something in the 444 last week. And there was, 70,000 in the $5, something like that. I don't have those right in front of me, but just through mathematics, there's more combinations. And so the higher someone's going to have more lineup options out there. So certainly being a little different, but I guess my mindset gets hard to say, if I'm building 1 lineup, I think it's the best optimal lineup. So I'm going to put it in everything. I don't care if it's 10,000 or 100 people. That's how I think. So I don't know if that answers, but I would try not to get too cute in that. And I would stick to a core at worst and build that. Bankroll management side of me, if you allocate $15, so if you build 3 lineups and you're going to just toss them in the $5, I know Bucks was a big, anything he built, he put in the $5 and in the 44, whether it was 1 or 5 or whatever, because you just never want to have that week that you had the nuts and you didn't put it in. But if your bankroll is like a total of $40 for the week, I don't think I'd waste 15 putting 3 in the $5 that I'd do it the $5 3 max before I would, and I would try to build my bankroll up. So it kind of depends on your certain situation and how you're allocating your funds. So pay attention to that. Constructing a 3 max GPP definitely depends on the week and the volatility of the week. A week like last week where you had different waves, different strategies, maybe you get a weather week in there, you may have a little bit bigger pool. Me in general, I would probably have 8, no more than 11 players for a 3 max GPP. I build tighter cores, so I kind of want that, but I never have one guy in all 3. So, well, rarely. So DJ at WGC Mexico last year, I referenced quite a bit on the pod, is one of the weeks where I had DJ and everything. So that kind of situation where I'm so strong on a player and a play, I will. But that's 1 out of, call it 40 tournaments now that I think I did it twice last year. So this just tells you 2 out of 40 is not very much. So 5% of the time I may have one guy in a 3 max all the way across. Other than that, I basically will, let's say I'd have 2, 2, and 2. And so if I have 3 guys, I'll have, the 3 here, then 2, then 2, then 3, which would be better on a video type setup. But it's not cascade like some people do. It's a little bit different. I have a little bit different way that I like to build. And I'll get into that a little bit in our pod. But great question overall. I hope that helped. My other one's on my phone, so you have to pardon me. If you play single entry at 3 max, should you fade with some reasonable but infrequent exceptions the top price guy? Curious if you have data on this too. And this is Sean. And you DM me. So hit me up and you'll get the free hat or shirt as well. I actually have been working on a project that I ran by my first results ADHD this morning. So it's kind of ironic you said that. And that data right now would kind of show more times than not, while that range in general performs well, the return isn't necessarily always there because of what you mentioned. I do think ownership matters up there more for the reason I talked about earlier, that if you can get a high price guy, and it may be the highest price guy at a low ownership where you can double up the field and not have to be 40% on the guy that's 12K, that's advantageous to your building, in my opinion. But more times than not, I mean, it's hard for anybody to win golf. So just forget the 10K, 12K guy. I mean, to pick any guy to say, is this range going to win more times than not? It's too hard. And there's only 5 or 6 guys, sometimes 7 up there in the 5 and 10K period. So just the mathematical odds say they're not going to win most times, but a lot of times they're going to do well. So they're going to top 10 a lot. And so does where the in-depth research comes in is that the combo that you will generally fall on by playing the high guy, does that combo outscore the general 8 to 9K combo, or let's use a live example this week. So does the combo of Rory and Harris English, so they're 19,000 for those two, 9,500 each. Will that combo, for instance, outscore, Finau, Sungjae? Just close, right in that range. Finau, Matsu, something like that, more often or not. Woodland, Finau would be similar to Rory English. And that's some of the scale, the upfront research is easy. You can just go through and do the points and go, because right now I think the 8K, what I ran on the big research project I'm doing, the 8K is the sweet zone right now through 3 weeks. Now there's a lot of factors into that. And so that would just be the on surface blanket statement. But what I'm trying to go into is to look at the most common pairing when you are up there, because you can't just grade the Rory or you got to go, okay, well, Rory's normally going to fall. Let's just say his natural pairing is this. And you could go 3x3, 4x4, but then you start getting into some crazy math, which is doable. But I just want to look at a 2v2 is the most common deal. So I go, Rory, like I just did. Okay, Rory English, those stature of players and where they project and all that, is more times than not that better? Or is it better to go, a Reed Woodland, Reed Finau, Matsu Reed, 2 of those guys that are all together going to be the same salary allocation. So far, my research would say going the balanced route is better. Very anecdotal right now. Don't like go, that's the end all be all this week. But so far, that seems to be, and the reason being is picking the high 8, low 9 guy range, picking two of those guys to do well is seems to be a easier process than trying to pick not the top guy. You're always good. That's easy. Okay, Rory. But to figure out which guy in the 7K range that we mentioned earlier has 29 guys compared to that one range has way more than the 8, 9 in total. It's the odds of picking that guy that does well. Is it Damon this week? Is it Griot? Is it English? I mean, there's so many combinations there. Now I will say, and I just started this part of the research in GPP land. I think you can make an argument for both because if you're Tambo and you build 100, you can get a lot of those combos. And then I may go, well, if you're going to have the mathematical odds to tell me your odds of picking the right lower range person with that high guy is higher because you're doing a MME build, I may argue that's better. But very infant stages of this project. I think it's going to be great for the community once I kind of get it wrapped together and run some stuff with ADHD. I'm doing all the raw stuff right now, and then I'll get with him to kind of help me build it out. But I picked that question because I kind of wanted to tease that project as well, because it is something I've been working on for a while, and I have the research going on it. Last question, Chris Parrish, DM. So reach out. So he's an annual member. Thank you for being an annual member. We appreciate the support. He goes, I'm struggling with the best way to maximize return. I was playing $3 3 max, but it's really hard to narrow your player pool to 18, which I will say 18 is too much. I just mentioned that. Not to mention it's tough to play some flyer guys. And I'd like to just have a lot more lineups. So with that said, does it make more sense for me to take my bankroll basically and max out something like the $20 max or the quarter jukebox? I would say if your mentality leads you to just reading your DM tells me your mentality is a Tambo mentality more that you want to, you may have the right pool a lot and just not hit the right guys. So it gets frustrating because you're limited. I would go that route. I would do the $20, $1 or 20 max $1 or the jukebox. But when doing that, I would go pull the results from some of the bigger 20 maxes. So you can say, okay, if I'm going to build this just like I was playing the, whatever, $8 20 max, or I don't know all the price ranges up there, but and see how you're doing up there, because those quarter maxes and stuff I think are huge pools, and so just kind of go, all right, I have my 20, let's say I put it in this, how would I have done? And I did that for a while when I was breaking into the industry to kind of gauge how my process was, because I believe, obviously I'm a big believer in process over outcome to an extent, but that's my opinion. So I just reading the way you say that, I would definitely lean that route of doing some MME. At least try it for like a month. But once you do it, don't just do it 1 week. Like you gotta go, all right, I'm gonna stick to it for this cycle. Whether your cycle is 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever, give it a try, different tournaments, different pools, see how you come out. And if you get done with it all and go, that was fun, but I really think I can do better if I focus in on 3 max. At least you give it a try and it's not in the back of your head, clear that noise out. Great questions. I will get more in. I like that segment. I hope you guys do as well. Hit me up with feedback as always. My final thoughts, as always, join Tambo and myself Wednesday night in the chat room, 8:00 Eastern for the E9. We may bump that to 8:30 because football is pretty much done. We'll probably do something Super Bowl wise maybe, but I'll let you know on that. I'll confirm that with Tambo. I do like getting it done early on Wednesday because allows more building time and slack time for the community in general. But I know the West Coast peoples like it as late as they like 9, but East Coast we're trying to meet the middle there. So maybe we go 8:30, meet the middle, 7:30 my time, and knock that out. Final reminder, go check out gupscorner.com/challenge. Make sure you get in. If you're not a member today, this is your time to get in. Potential chance to win a all paid trip to the Honda Classic, the DFS Open, a luxury suite on Sunday, and much more. Gupscorner.com/store. Buy your combo pack, gets you an entry to that challenge. Now, you must be an annual member of Gups Corner to win. That's been on the kind of NOMR the whole time. Big news. I mentioned this on, I think, E9 maybe. I mentioned it somewhere in the community, but Tambo and I secured tickets to the Waste Management Phoenix Open through a work relationship, and so we have executive suite passes to the 16 green at the Waste Management Saturday and Sunday. It's Tambo's birthday weekend as well, so I invited him to be my +1 for the week. Mrs. Gupp was, nice enough to allow me to do that because she'll be joining us at the Honda. So she was fine with that. And then it's also Super Bowl weekend, so we will probably hit up some spot to watch the Super Bowl Sunday night. So we both land sometime Thursday. We'll be getting in Thursday afternoon, evening. So if you're going to be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, even Thursday night, want to grab a drink, grab a bite to eat. I'm going to probably play golf Friday. So any of that kind of stuff, hit me up. I'll be around. Tambo will be there with me as well. Looking forward to it. It's going to be a great time, kind of last minute, but we'll have a little pre-party for the Honda Classic at the Waste Management. Should be great. Probably, could be, remorse to go without saying, Martin Luther King Day, what it means to me in general. One of the greatest men to ever walk this earth by far. It puts a different perspective when you have a child, and a child that asks questions and recognize stuff that about as an adult and you went through as a child. And I was an 80s baby. So but I've always grown up in mixed schools, mixed neighborhoods. Lower income neighborhoods is where I lived. My wife lived in the same. So white, black, brown, green. I've had friends. Some of my best friends in the world are black. All kinds. So I'm definitely diversified in that area. Not to mention playing football gives you a different perspective of racism, in the sense that we always, one of my favorite movies of all time, Remember the Titans, that bond of the football field, shines through any kind of racism that you would even see in a locker room. The brotherhood of football bonds you beyond the color of your skin. And so, my wife was telling me tonight before I got on here, she knew, I was going to talk about this, to have our son, he's autistic, but he's very cognitive of everything. And so, it's simply putting this question. He goes, Mommy, I don't get it. Why? So he's very black and white. And if you knew Madden, you would know, like, it's like, well, this just doesn't make, that's stupid. Like, if he get cussed, like, this shit's dumb. He goes, I just don't get it. Why would the color matter where there'd be so much hatred? Like, what does that even matter? And so, how do you answer it? Right. It's ignorant. It's stupid. I still believe that. Obviously anybody, I would hope, believes that today, but to hear it from a kid, especially a very intelligent kid like that, who in 2020 as a 9-year-old, has a cognizance to go, well, what does that even matter? It's a person. People are people. What is, and so to try to explain that to him is very difficult. And they've watched some videos and movies and all that and tried to educate them. But there's your babies and your young ones and people that look up to you, even it could be coworkers or whatever, are always watching. And so your actions speak louder than your words. And Martin Luther King was big on that. And it's, I've realmed in the whole Twitter world in the last year. I've told you guys about it. I've tried mute and move on, was kind of the 2020 theme. I just, even into 2019, and I maintain that. I get frustrated at times. There's stuff on there that frustrates me that I think is, ignorant and dumb and a waste of people's time. But it's full of hate at times. It's full of, very ignorant, dumb people saying ignorant and dumb things that it almost makes you not want to be on there. And then obviously, there's a good side of it, the community, and Gupp's Corner was born through it, and all these other great communities, the Mayos of the world, the Feinbergs, Wileys, Kenny Kim, all these people. Think about all these people that are in my life right now that I wouldn't have known at all without Twitter. Tambo, JB behind the mic, Bucks, some of my best friends in the world today. Kenny Kim, can't wait to meet him. Feinberg, him and I become really good friends. OG John, he's the one hosting us every year, or he's kind of the host at the Honda, and one of my best friends in the world. Scott, I get to meet Ryan, who's a member now. I mean, a contributor now. I mean, Preston, D-Rock, Dan. I mean, Melinda, the Queen, ADHD, one of my best friends as well right now. I see him more than any of the others because he's right here in Texas with me. But so many good comes out of it that you try to ignore the bad. And the big deal with Martin Luther King was the actions speak louder than words type of deal. And he was a man of action. And that's what I respected most about him. So I'm just going to leave tonight with three of my favorite quotes I have of his. I have a lot of Gandhi quotes. I have a lot of these. A lot of them are up in my office every day. But three that I like the most, and I won't dive into them. I just like them. You can think about them what you want. His first one, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. The second one, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Which is one of my foundations to Gup's Corner. And last, every man must decide whether he will walk in the light of creative altruism or in the darkness of destructive selfishness. And being unselfish is not easy on some instances for most people. Everybody has a little bit of me in them, but one of the biggest things I teach my kids and I work on every day is, we are not going to be selfish people. Unselfishness takes, is more effort, but more rewarding in life. And that's one of the things that Gup's Corner was built on. And no better day than kind of reemphasize that to myself, my family, and then all you guys out there, especially. So, rest in peace to him. Enjoy the day with your family. Love your little ones tonight. I will be back live Wednesday night with Tambo. Looking forward to it. Have a great Monday, and we'll see you Wednesday. Thanks.
SmashFactor.